It's seems like every time there's some new sort of issue. What's up, guys? It's fake truth. It's the live truth show. But I am wondering why my cool sound effects are not working. My typical intro music, my typical other typicalities. We're just gonna jump into the control panel here for a second and set this up manually because, well, I guess that's what should have happened in the first place. Wait for it. Okay. Now I feel like I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about black holes with you because I don't know that bumper music has become very important to me. As maybe it's become important to you too. If you're a sentient human watching this, are you a sentient human? I'd be curious to know. Are you an algorithm or a sentient human? What's the difference? So, yeah, we're going to get hardcore into black holes because people just seem to love black holes these days. It's like hot science topic number one. Everything from NASA research pictures of black holes to black hole, you know, I'm sure you could get some black hole like hoodies or other sort of cool black hole attire. But you're also able to see it in your favorite kids programming shows where the villain is a black hole or like a semi-villain, like because his brain is living inside the black hole or he is the black hole or there's some sort of hybridized black hole human entity. And so it's sort of ruining everything, but it's also a person, so you don't want to just kill it. Which takes on like a whole nother level of like what is sentient, planets, asteroids, black holes. I mean, black holes you would think of as being one of the most like inhuman, unfeeling, dangerous sort of entity. But it seems like, yeah, we're being almost encouraged to think differently, that a black hole itself is much more than just a life-sucking, light-sucking destroyer of worlds, that it actually has some sort of some spirituality, power, or control over its existence. Which I guess, hey, why not? I'm just trying to refine my concepts and keep them in line with what we're being told or what is being rolled out in the moment. So right? I think all of this stuff ties together. A lot of this space news, this space talk. What is it about asteroids and space? I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've just been fascinated with this stuff. I loved going to the space museum and the planetarium and hearing about big, large, faraway things with giant numbers. That's just, ever since I was a kid, it's always sparked my attention. And as we all, I guess, learn more about the nature of reality and what is actually happening in this world, almost the more interesting it becomes. And just the fact that there is sort of an endless inundation of said space propaganda, or whatever you want to call it, just general exciting space facts and details. It honestly doesn't matter what demographic you're in, what age range, what types of magazines or things you're reading. If you're taking part in the culture at all, there's almost a 100% chance that you've been familiarized with these concepts of asteroids and space and dangerous stuff, right? So here's just an article I pulled about this guy who, you'll see in a second in the article, they don't trust at all, and then you can sort of see from the pictures, like, sketchy. There's something sketchy about his, like, physiognomy, and I was just personally kind of curious who this guy is on his wall. Maybe you recognize him. Sort of unrelated to black holes, but is it, right? Michael Horn, who calls himself, and I've highlighted called himself because this is how this language game works, right? If you don't want the researcher or the person to be respected or accepted, then you will use language like this in your article, right? Who calls himself a research scientist. You can't just call yourself a research scientist. You have to actually have some accreditation, which confuses me that they're running this article anyways. If most of the article is about how this guy is not trustworthy and the information he's providing is somehow inflammatory or false, right? They posted it anyways, suggesting that this gigantic rock, which is been talked about for a long time by many people, will in fact hit somewhere between the North Sea and the Black Sea. He also represents ufologist Billy Meyer. Believes the asteroid will crack the Earth, releasing gases which could kill millions of people, right? So that just sounds a little hard to believe. Maybe possibly true. We'll get into Google in a second, but I think it's worth highlighting this game that they're constantly playing. He was unable to explain how his, quote, research team, because it's not a real research team, it's just a bunch of alien-believing suckers. But at the same time, we're still encouraged to turn this over in our minds that, maybe there is this cataclysmic monster asteroid that's going to come down and wipe everything out. And it just seems like a numbers game at this point, right? If you spend enough time on the road driving, there's an increasing chance that you'll get in an accident. And I guess that's the story that we're being told. The longer we sit out here in open space with all these rocks flying around, just sort of a matter of time before something actually hits us and resets the whole game. And yeah, I think this ties into that same sort of playing both sides against each other and getting people just into a frenzy where, right, that magazine or newspaper will publish this article saying we are guaranteed to get hit by this asteroid. Once you read the article, they're tearing apart the research and saying these are just a bunch of quacks that you shouldn't listen to. Right, so but why did you publish the article then in the first place? I guess if you thought it was worthless, false information, wouldn't you just not publish it? But we see sort of again and again that is not the point. The point is to get people riled up, to put you on one or other side of the camp, and right? Just get you out of harmony, get you fighting with your friends, your colleagues, and your own actual internal mind brain, so that, well, right, you don't know what to believe. You see that there's a controversy, and once you settle yourself decidedly in one camp, you might just turn around and decide, well, this is not the camp. This isn't the right camp. Maybe I should head to the other camp. And obviously, there's a push towards this new religion of the planet and saving it and protecting it and not causing harm to it, right? So all of those things about, don't throw your trash away. You should breathe less, maybe have less babies, maybe possibly kill yourself, and also live a shorter time. Those are all good things that you should check box in your life. So you might as well live pretty unhealthy, just so you can make space for the next round. Because there's, you should just stop being. Quit it. Quit it. Quit existing. Your existence is ruining everything. But right, see, because I have this conversation constantly with people. Oh, who are they? Who are these people that you think are controlling everything? Well, I'd say Google counts as one of those sort of overarching figures that are helping shape the reality that we all contribute to and live in these days. And right, here's just the plain facts that they're giving money to both sides of the climate debate in order to drum up more excitement and fear and danger and just upsetted feelings, right? If they really were only interested in kickstarting the climate religion the way the main push seems to be, then they wouldn't be doing stuff like this. Google has made, right? Google themselves have made substantial contributions to some of the most notorious climate deniers in Washington. Despite its insistence, it supports political action on the climate crisis. Among hundreds of groups that the company has listed on its website as beneficiaries of its political giving are more than a dozen organizations that have campaigned against climate legislation, questioned the need for action, or actively sought to roll back Obama-era environmental protections, right? So why Google? Why would you be doing this? And I guess this article is just sort of meant to spark more outrage, but as with all these things, right? Even when they're trying to get your goat, get you riled up, they're still showing their cards. They have to. It's the only way this thing works. And right, even though this article, I guess, is primarily meant to get you annoyed with Google as a monstrous figure, I think we can just take it as just another confirmation and understanding that the higher ups or the entities that are in charge of influence and the shaping of ideas are very interested in there being a split down humanity. That no matter what issue, no matter what idea that you've come to believe, that you have to fall squarely into one camp or another, right? You're either a climate denier or a climate lover and acceptor and helper, right? How many breaths did you take today? Are you supporting the climate? Well, if you're not, then maybe we should just kill you even earlier than you should be killed for just existing regularly. And what's up, Grant Harper? Yeah, it's definitely like extra early Sunday morning, extra late Saturday night in the Americas. So yeah, it's good to hear from you, Grant. I keep, the best laid plans of my cement. I keep trying to get on here in the evening times in America, but for me that means waking up early, which is, I'll be the first to not deny it. My lifelong nemesis, waking up early and getting out of bed, getting going, because right, I'm definitely a product of this society, just like the rest of anybody listening out there. Stay up too late, do too many, caffeine related products. Don't take care of myself, and that makes it hard to concentrate and wake up in the morning. So that's just just another personal little moment there. Speaking of personal moments, I wanted to talk about California just again for a second because it's on fire again. There's more burning happening, and while this isn't surprising, it's again just worth taking sort of a little look at it. A little not horribly critical. We don't have to sit here forever just analyzing these images, but worth thinking about for a second. That right, if a house burned down, if everything in the house on the ground instantly became ash and burned and fell apart, wouldn't you expect also like the walls, maybe the other wooden objects, the plants to burn as well? It's just generally when I picture a fire, I picture it burning indiscriminately, right? It doesn't care if your grandfather clock has made it through previous fires and is a very beautiful grandfather clock. Like the fire doesn't care. It's going to latch on to right, especially organic matter, wood, basically wood. That's what a fire likes to burn, wood. At least in my personal experience. And so I just find this picture fascinating to see all these wooden objects just being completely fine in the middle of a room full of very charred, right? These aren't just like lightly burned, it's extremely burned, right? And I guess this was yesterday, having trouble keeping track. They declared another state of emergency out there in the valley in California. And right, no surprise that it's coming at this time of year, this time of day, Santa Ana winds and all that, right? And these are images from the New York Times. These are not meant to be hidden or secret by any meaningful stretch, right? And this, right? And I obviously don't want to be lighthearted about people suffering ever. That's what makes it hard to talk about a lot of this stuff. Is if you're questioning, just the very nature of reality. If you're questioning what even is a fire in the modern era, what does it entail? How does it happen? Who does it hurt? Right? I have no doubt that people's lives are being destroyed constantly by what's going on in the world. But just that element of suffering and pain should not dissuade us from looking into the nature of reality, right? Because I think that's a classic, again, distraction technique used by the powerful people, that especially when a lot of people are dying, being injured, being persecuted, being hurt in some way, it's very easy to deflect any sort of questioning or reasoning when it comes to that subject, because right, it goes right to the emotional, goes right to those poor people that lost their lives or lost their children, their animals, their homes, their livelihoods, right? And this is something that resonates with all of us, because we can all picture losing everything we have, even if it's not very much, or even if it's a lot, right? We can all picture just losing it. And that makes it easy not to question the situation, but I still have to question it. And that's why I've circled these things, right? Again, I think it's from the same house as that grandfather clock. What I find very interesting is the light fixtures that are hanging down, smoldering, burned out light fixtures that have sort of seemed to come unattached from the wall, right? And this may be because, who knows, there could have been some electrical discharge or something, and that's what sparked this whole house up. Some transformer got hit in the fire and ended up going through this house. But these pictures follow a theme for me as well as what I've seen from other researchers looking into modern fires. That this is more the standard image and situation than something anomalous. That you will see burned out electrical fixtures, charred elements, while at the same time leaving entire, large cabinets with glass. If a fire was actually burning through here, the glass would be shattered from the heat. We would probably see some scorching marks here on the walls. But that's not what we see. We just see sort of isolated elements, right? And obviously, I don't know the whole story. Maybe they rushed into this place just right at the right time. The firefighters got there and they got all the hot spots out and, shot water at the sparking light fixtures to get it all out. And they were able to salvage some of this more flammable ancient material. I guess maybe the lacquer just protects it so well. But there's something incongruous about this image to me, and I don't know. Let me know if you think otherwise or the same. I'm curious constantly. What is it? Why is it? Why did this happen? And where is it headed? And just like those images of the fire, right? It's these things that we get inundated with over and over again. If you live anywhere in America, you're aware that fires have become a problem, and that it most likely has to do with the climate and the changing climate, and it's our fault, and mostly your fault personally, and that you should feel bad that somehow you contributed to burning down that person's house. And in the same way that narrative is getting built, there is a steady build of narrative when it comes to space rocks and items. What's going on in space, the danger that it's posing to us. There seems to be just a steady stream of that, right? So here's just another. Honestly, that there's it seems like there's dozens of these articles every single day talking about a different asteroid group or a different aspect of something. And I ask myself, why? Why scientists warned earth-shattering impact could end human existence, right? And I guess a lot of this is just for clicks and other sort of feelings, right? Because I'm thinking if you really had some next-level data or proof that something terrible was going to happen, you would not put it in a book. But maybe, right? Does this have something to do with that, what's it called? Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode where they, or season where the Earth gets sort of cut in half and is floating on its side. Is that something that may be coming, right? Because that's, again, we don't know, and we're being inundated by articles that are ginning up fear and doubt and mistrust about what's going on in the sky. I have little doubt that there actually is a scientific consensus and an awareness of what's going on in the sky, and that our advanced instruments would be able to detect the exact trajectory and approach of a planet-killing asteroid, that they would know exactly when, where, how, why that would be landing, right? That's sort of what I assume. If they're able to land spaceships and calculate orbital distances and get satellites to fly around Saturn and all that stuff, they should be able to track asteroids. And right, I get that they don't have lights on them and they're dark and there's a lot going on up in the sky, but at the same time, I honestly think they're smart enough to figure this out, that they could track the approach, that they could know what's going on there. Right? But that's not what we're being told. What we're being inundated with is these sort of tangential, possible, maybe we shouldn't trust the scientist, but he's saying kind of articles, right? And just over and over again. And I ask myself, why? Why am I doing that? I'm just noticing over here in the chat. It's good to see Mad Am Mystic Watcher. Is it Mad Am or Mad AM? That's what I want to know. And Eric Elliott. It's good to see everybody. It's good to have human interaction. I always say it's good to just talk to each other. Can we talk about stuff and be honest? Because honestly, this is the only time I do that in my life. When I jump on the stream and I talk about my actual thoughts about asteroids. Because honestly, in reality, in normal life, I've come to the realization that it's best just not to rock the boat. It makes people feel uncomfortable. In the same way, it's right. You don't want to bring up death or destruction at a baby shower or something. It's just not really polite in society to be talking about this kind of stuff. And maybe that's me falling to societal norms. Maybe I should keep pushing my asteroid talk and mud flood talk out in the reality world. And I still bring it up sometimes, but you realize how long of a journey it is to get towards looking for truth, right? And how locked down most people are. And I'll be the first to admit that was me just a couple years ago, not even beginning to question or doubt any of the official ideas and narratives. So I just thought this was interesting. If we're talking about asteroids and we're talking about other sort of dangerous things, this article would end with a reference to the moon. And she was saying, this article, is saying that the actual species-ending, life-changing impact is something that, well, something we should embrace and appreciate. Again, just like the end of the climate crisis and us burning ourselves up, that we should almost embrace these changes as a good possibility, as something that we should look forward to. And that, right, an asteroid is what we have to thank for our own existence. That's the reason why that we're here, because an asteroid came and killed all those dinosaurs. And I think there is something weird going on with the moon, so I just think it's interesting she references the moon. And again, seemingly unrelated, but these all tie into that same emotional state that we're supposed to be in, right? Here's a long article. This is, mildly fascinating about why there's more lightning striking over shipping lanes. And what do you want to bet? I'll bet you like a bunch of Bitcoin that I don't actually have, that it has to do with climate change and us polluting the environment. What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet? It's crazy but true, right? It may sound crazy. We're talking crazy stuff here, but if you know about lightning and how that all works, right, it has to do with condensing around little particles, and then stuff like dust really helps lightning get started and get going. And, well, what do you know? It turns out that these ships here are just crazy bad polluters, right? That the burning of fossil fuels is a reliable way to make particles to bring on lightning. And the problem is that these shipping ships, they use this bunker fuel, which is like the really dark, gross crude that's at the bottom of the barrel after you refine the gasoline. And that, right, again, with this sort of satanic referencing that it is containing 3,500 times as much sulfur, that it's real bad. And that, again, with the numbers, the fleet burns 3.3 or 33 million barrels daily, and that this must have something to do with all of this coming together. And that's right. Maybe I am a little tiny bit too freeform as I just look over the clock and it's saying 30 minutes and 33 seconds. But I think that is the nature of our reality, that these numbers, these things have these resonances, and if you're willing to look at things in a little sort of strange way, that you come to realize, like, what seems completely unrelated is in effect actually totally related, right? And I think all of this talk about lightning and flash is going to be a nice transition into our main subject of black holes occurring in the flash. Right, and I haven't pulled up all of the black hole articles that I've been reading in this particular show. Right, here's just another sort of short example, though, of what's going on. We're being encouraged to imagine black holes in all sorts of different forms. Right, I think the big story this year that everybody caught was that picture of the black hole, how the black hole has this accretion disk around it, this image, right? We're being made very aware of what a black hole looks like far away and close up, right? So we've seen, I assume that most of you have seen that sort of pixely, grainy image that NASA came up with the black hole. And now, right, here's another paper talking about these astronomers have discovered that powerful winds driven by supermassive black holes in the center of dwarf galaxies have a significant impact on the evolution of these galaxies by suppressing star formation. Right? So now we're seeing that not only are black holes just like sucking in everything, that they actually generate this wind. Again, right, trying to figure out what wind actually means in space. But apparently it's wind nonetheless. It blows the particles, I guess, around in the galaxy. And when the galaxy is small enough, like a dwarf galaxy, this wind can actually have like an effect on star formation and the dust itself. So, right, it's almost like they are conscious, like they are sentient. They have this power to influence things around them, and most of this influence is largely unseen by the rest of us. Right, and this is just a story about dwarf galaxies, but we've been reading a lot. I think I referenced it earlier about Planet 9 actually being a black hole. Right, and Eric Elliott just mentions that there is no space. I am fully on board also with that whole philosophy. I sort of rapidly vacillate between there being no space and that all being a big sham, that there's no aliens, it's all just demonic entities and other sort of interdimensional creatures, that all of this interdimensionality stuff is being papered over with all of these space facts. And that's, again, a core reason why we're encouraged to enjoy, appreciate, and talk about space stuff from such a young age, because, right, everything that's important, they got to get you early on. Which makes me wonder even more, right, if they really do know that there's no space, that all of this stuff is just for fun, a distraction, then why so much black hole news now? What do they know that's Alright, so that's enough of the news. I just want to get into this Flash thing. The show's been running for quite some time. This is actually the start of the 6th season. So, right, whatever significance, I think they do build heavy significance into the seasons. All of these things matter. The numbers, all of it matters. So, right, that this is the 6th season, and the things that are happening in it, I think all of those things are sort of interrelated, right? And so this seems to be a mildly important season for this show, whatever you might think that means. So this was the first episode of the season, right? The villain of the week, and again, it's called Into the Void, sorry. And he's right. If you don't watch the Flash is basically still in this old style of comic book cartoon thing where there's some backstory, there's some general drama going on between the characters, but what really happens is some new villain shows up every week and tries to just fuck shit up, basically. Just fucking that shit up. He's like, bro, let me fuck some shit up. And then obviously the Flash team gets in his face and stops him every time, and it works every time. And it's worked for hundreds of episodes at this point. So, why mess with a good formula there? So, right? And this article talks a little about what the reference is from the actual comic book, right? I think he's called something different in the actual episode. But the villain is Chester P. Runk, a name that people should know, right? In the actual comic book, he's an overweight nerd who, after testing an experimental matter-transmitting machine he created, was transferred into a human black hole. And again, with all the superhero stuff, we realize that these ideas, these concepts, all of this is a repetition of what has already been seeded into the culture, and that it being on TV this week is by no means the first iteration of this information flow, right? That when people were reading comic books, I'm not sure exactly when this came out, maybe back in the 50s sometimes, that they were already being influenced and inundated with these concepts. The people don't read anymore, so they got to put it on screen, but that doesn't mean that they still don't want the same ideas out there, same concepts, right? So a couple layers here, right? This is some more virtue signaling from whoever this writer was, being very annoyed that this was all referencing, overweight fat people jokes in the previous iteration, and how that's just really just so offensive, right? Chester going my chunk once again with the fat jokes, and he used his black hole power to imprison people who slighted him, right? Just as a petty sort of, right? You made fun of me, so I'm just gonna black hole you, right? It seems like maybe a little bit overkill, a little bit. And what I found really interesting, until he eventually became an infrequent ally of Wally West's version of the Flash, reforming himself into a wealthy businessman who used his black hole powers to conveniently disappear unwanted objects, right? So, what if that was part of our reality, right? If you had enough money in cash that you really could sort of generate a black hole and then disappear that shit, you just drop it in the black hole, and your political enemies or any sort of offending documents or bad things, that you could just get that out of there. Just get it out of there. And it's just, I think that's interesting that he's a wealthy businessman, right? And I agree with Eric Elliott here, hashtag Truthio, but also, I love this. I love the superhero stuff. I love Batman. This is all stuff that I grew up with, and stuff that I continue to watch, like, passionately for fun. But I don't think that means that I still can't, to take an honest look at it, analyze, look for symbols, shapes, concepts, and right, do both at the same time. Appreciate this awesome, hardworking team of artists that have created this show, while at the same time tearing apart it for the merciless propaganda and idea shaping that it actually is, right? I like to do both at the same time, because we do live in this world. Why try to, ignore it and put up your hand? So just the basic concept of this show, this episode, he gets the black hole feelings, and then he doesn't realize that he's making the black holes. He just starts making black holes next to things that he thought, it's like a memory-based thing, and they got him locked down, but he can create these black holes anywhere, I guess, that he knows he was at or was in, right? So we see these black holes showing up next to the coffee shop that he liked to sit in, and other black hole related things, right? But I just want to focus on the fact that the main point is that, right, little kids are watching this from 6 years old to maybe a little older. This is on primetime television, and so this is something that a lot of people, I think, from young adults all the way to adults to children, are watching. And after seeing this episode, you're fully prepped. It's like black holes 101. If you talk to anybody after seeing this episode, you could ask them, like, bro, do you know what a black hole is? Like, can you tell me about black holes? And they'll be able to go on for minutes telling you all the properties, the dangers, the possibilities, right? It's like a mini lesson just wrapped up into this episode. And that, I think, is just fascinating. This sort of nexus, the meeting point of entertainment with education, and how that turns into propaganda, how that actually is the shaping of our minds and ideas. And how it's important to just take a step back and try to not let it completely influence you. Right, so, but I guess this is all fantasy. Black holes don't just appear in the world, but again, right, with the lightning in the shipping lanes and the moving at the speed of light, that he would be generating lightning. Oh, and bonus hexagons on his shoes, obviously. Shout out to who's my hexagon guy, Scott Walker, right? Hexagons for days. I got hexagons on my shoes personally. And, I'm going to spoil the story. The Flash is able to jump inside of the black hole and rescue the consciousness of Chester, who, I guess I don't have a picture of Chester here. In the actual episode, he is not an overweight nerd, but an African-American glasses-wearing nerd. So I guess that's less offensive, but still, using a marginalized character to portray that whole situation. So, we see the Flash here diving through the black hole. Since he has the magic skills, he's able to just bust it out, and survive being in this black hole, and as he's able to get back the consciousness of this guy, right? But they're worried about him because he's like pushing the limits, that maybe he went too far and he could have got stuck in the black hole. Emotional sort of blah, blah, blah. I think the emotional part, the storytelling is what keeps you watching, what keeps you interested. But the reason that's there is to present the information, the ideas and the concepts around a black hole, and to refine those, right? That it isn't just some mindless sucking void. Oh, right, here's the guy, Mr. Chunk. Right, and you can see he's not very chunky in this, but is definitely somehow different. And as my last sort of observation here, we again, with the octagon representing the world and the trappedness that we are in that, right? It's sort of a layer deeper than the hexagon. We see the octagon as representing everything, right? If the hexagon was just the spell that's being cast, right? You have to cast the spell within a place. So the place, the symbol that I think represents that is the octagon, right? And if in television you got to extrapolate the shapes because they will hide them, right? But if you extrapolate this shape, if you make a mirror image on the other side, right at the bottom, this will be an octagon. And so again, very interesting to have him laying on this octagon after the whole ordeal. He's survived it. They've rescued his consciousness out of the black hole, and everything's good, Everything's good at that point. We saved the bad guys, and so, I don't know, we learned a lot. We just learned a lot, and then we were just watching The Flash. It wasn't really anything like, we didn't have to go to science class or any of that stuff. And, right, that's about all I got on The Flash and just all of this stuff in general for the moment. But maybe you see what I'm talking about. Maybe you're coming with me, or maybe not. Maybe you think I'm just totally being crazy. But otherwise, either way, I'd like to hear from you and see what you think about the whole story. If you're into The Flash, if you're not, if you're into black holes or you're not. You've had your own personal experiences out there in the world that have come to this summation of what you call your current level of understanding, and I think that's fascinating regardless of where you're at. So don't keep it bottled up. That's what I'm trying to do. Don't just sift it over in your mind. Let it go and see See if your concept of the world interacts well with other people's concept of the world. And I think that's how we get just inch mildly closer to the truth every just tiny little micro step. Every episode watched and torn apart or black hole visited. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it, dog. All right. I'm going to copy this. Over here. It looks like I snuck past the censors with a little bit of video here, and that makes me very happy. It's nice to show you guys a little bit of the actual footage, right? This is from the intro. And yeah, if you didn't know how a black hole works, this is a great just portrayal of it. You're going to get sucked in unless you have a lightspeed superhero person to help save you, right? So who's going to be our lightspeed superhero when Nibiru, the black hole sun, comes by and starts sucking people out of the atmosphere? Who's going to be our Flash? Is it going to be them? Right? Because if we're on the same page with Eric Elliott, then none of this space stuff is real, and the actual black hole, the actual thing that's coming, that they know is coming, known as Nemesis or Nibiru or whatever you want to call it, that it really is something that happens in our reality, that it is coming. It's not a black hole. It's not a matter-sucking singularity, but maybe something much more sinister and dark and sentient, right? That it really is this nemesis, this terrifying monster creature that is going to come and just literally suck people off the face of the earth. That's almost much more terrifying than the cold, calculated singularity collapse of gravity that the story that we're being told here and for my entire life. I get why they would want to paper over that. We'll keep searching, you know. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. I honestly care less and less that not many people watch the stream because I know that I get a lot out of it. So whatever, dog. It's good to have Eric Elliott and Mad Mystic Watcher and the rest of you guys. I sincerely appreciate your attention because it's sort of the only thing that matters these days.
Thank you for giving me your time and attention. It's mad important since we're living in a simulation. Since it's all fake and the only thing that matters is consciousness and attention. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me.
Later, dogs. Later. Good. We'll catch you on the flip side. I'll catch you on the flip.